You're about to hear the true story of a Revolutionary War hero, Sergeant Lawrence Everhart, told with toys. Lawrence Everhart was born in 1755 in Germany. His family came to live in America when he was a boy. Our story begins when he enlisted as a private in the Continental Army when he was 21 years old, about 3 weeks after the Declaration of Independence was signed. He was assigned to a unit called the Flying Camp, and his officer was Captain Good. Everhart trained to be a soldier for a few weeks and then was sent to New York. There are conflicting reports as to whether he took part in the Battle of Long Island, which took place on August 27, 1776. Since he was transferred to General Beale's command, and since General Beale was at the Battle of Long Island, I believe Everhart was there too. He may have even been part of the Maryland 400. The Maryland 400 was famous during the war because when the battle went terribly wrong for the Americans, the 400 acted as Washington's rear guard. They faced down 2,000 enemy troops in their immediate area. There were actually less than 400 of them, but they held off the British and Hessians long enough for the rest of Washington's army to escape. Unfortunately for the Maryland 400, they lost 256 killed and 100 captured. Washington, while watching them as they held off the British, was quoted as saying, "What brave fellows this day I must lose." Everhart's next battle was on October 28th at White Plains, New York. This turned out to be another disaster for the Americans. Everhart's detachment fell back to Fort Washington. Soon after, Everhart, his company, and the fort as well were captured by the British. But he and several others were able to escape. They made their way across the Hudson River to Fort Lee, New Jersey. But were captured yet again. And Everhart escaped yet again. Everhart recalled meeting George Washington for the first time on a porch at a house near Hackensack, New Jersey. He said Washington was very upset because Congress was not sending the desperately needed supplies and reinforcements. Everhart said Washington was on the verge of tears. The Marquis de Lafayette was a young Frenchman who came to America to help Washington and the Revolution. He did not get along well with his father. To Lafayette, George Washington was like the father he wished he had. And to George Washington, Lafayette was like the son he never had. General George Washington congratulated Lafayette on his recent promotion to general. General Washington, now that I am a general, may I lead the men in the next attack? Oh no, that would be too dangerous. I think you should stay in the rear. But General Washington, how am I to lead the army from the rear? I understand, but please be careful. Yes, General Washington, I will be careful as I lead the next attack. At Brandywine Creek, the Hessians were firing their cannons and were coming across the river by the thousands. Lafayette led a counterattack to drive them back, but he was shot in the leg by a Hessian. When the Americans saw their leader go down, they said, "Let's get out of here." But Lawrence Everhart and a friend picked up Lafayette and carried him 2 miles to a cabin of a friend where his wound could be treated and Lafayette could recover. In the fall of 1778, Everhart's enlistment had expired, and he went home to help get in the harvest. But he soon re-enlisted, this time as a sergeant, and he served as an aide to William Washington, who was a cousin of George Washington. The British changed their war strategy. Instead of defeating and chasing Washington's army around, which happened very often, they decided to concentrate on the southern colonies, as there were a lot of King's supporters there, known as Loyalists or Tories. William Washington's cavalry was sent south to counter the new British threat. An encounter took place at Rugeley's Mill, South Carolina. The Tories had fortified a barn in a very strategic area. William Washington and his 60 dragoons were ordered to go clear them out. When William Washington arrived, they saw that taking the place would be impossible. The Tories outnumbered them 2 to 1 and had even cut down trees to stop cavalry attacks. What do you think? I think if we attack that, we will all die. Yes, I've never seen a stronger position, but we can't leave this here. We're ordered to take it and destroy it. We would need a cannon. Yes, a cannon would be the answer. We could just blast them out of there. But of course, we don't have one. Yes, it's true we don't have one, but they don't know that. Everhart remembered something he had learned as a boy. May not be exactly what you're looking for, but generally, whatever you need something, you can find it within an arm's reach. Might not be exactly what you're looking for, but you can make something work. Everhart saw an old hay cart and a fallen tree. Some of William Washington's men tore off the stakes on the cart while others blackened the log. I was not able to find out how they blackened the log, perhaps with fire, maybe with axle grease or by some other method. But when it was ready, they put the log on the cart and they rolled it out in plain sight of the Tories. "Look, they have a cannon. We must surrender." 112 Tories occupying the mill soon surrendered. William Washington took Rugeley's Mill without firing a shot. The commander of the British forces in the South was General Lord Charles Cornwallis, a very aggressive and successful general. Cornwallis's army consisted of 8,000 infantry and 600 cavalry. The new commander of the American army in the South was General Nathaniel Greene. Greene knew Cornwallis's army was too strong to attack in the traditional way, so Greene divided his army in two, giving half of his men to the old frontier general Daniel Morgan. With these two small forces, one could hit Cornwallis in one area, and while they were looking that way, hit him in a different area. These attacks seemed to come from everywhere, and to deal with this, Cornwallis decided to divide his army as well. He sent for his best commander, one who had never lost a battle, Banastre Tarleton. Lieutenant Colonel Tarleton was a famous person in the Revolution. He was the most hated and feared British officer in the entire war. The Americans nicknamed him Bloody Ben. He had a reputation for killing prisoners. Giving quarter meant that prisoners would be spared. The meaning of Tarleton's quarter was to take no prisoners. Tarleton may not have been as bad as his reputation implied. At the Battle of Waxhaws, the Americans were surrendering, but one broke the truce and shot at Tarleton, taking down his horse. Tarleton's men were outraged and they killed more than 100 Continental soldiers who were trying to surrender. And although Tarleton did not order the massacre, the Patriots attributed it to him and used the incident as propaganda. Sadly, afterwards, both sides felt justified in killing prisoners, and from that point forward, Tarleton was known as the Butcher. Cornwallis was to go after Greene's army, and Tarleton was to go after Morgan. Morgan had about 200 expert riflemen, about 500 militiamen, and about 400 Continentals. He also had 125 cavalrymen under the command of William Washington. Tarleton had about 1,000 infantry, 200 horsemen, and 2 grasshoppers. A grasshopper was a small cannon that could be pulled through difficult terrain with one horse. Tarleton pushed his men relentlessly. Major MacArthur was Tarleton's second in command. "Sir, the men are so very tired. May they not stop and rest for a bit?" "No, they can rest once we've caught and defeated Morgan." "But sir, the men are marching in their sleep." "That's fine as long as they are still marching." "But sir, we're out of food and the men have not eaten a proper meal in days." "Then we should make haste, Major. The men can eat Morgan's food. Push on." Morgan's men made Tarleton's pursuit as difficult as they could. They cut down trees across his path. They broke dams, filling the meadows with stinking toxic swamp water. The redcoats had to move through freezing water while carrying their muskets and ammunition over their heads. But finally, Tarleton was able to corner Morgan in a bend of the Broad River. There was no way they could retreat. The night before the Battle of Cowpens, Morgan went around to every campfire and told his men, "Boys, tomorrow we're going to have to fight Bloody Ben, and we'll have to whoop 'em too. We've got us hemmed in the swamps on our left and the rivers behind us, and there ain't no way to get across. There's no bridge, no ford, no boats. The river is rain-swollen and running fast." "General, why can't we just swim for it?" "Sorry, boys, but if you try to swim for it, you wouldn't make it 5 yards. You'd freeze and your body be swept down the river." "General, is this a trap?" "Sure is, boys. It's a trap for Tarleton." "How is this a trap for Tarleton?" Morgan was a good psychologist. He knew his men would likely run away if the dreaded Tarleton started pushing forward. He also knew his men might stand and fight if there was no other way. "I got it all worked out, fellers. Here's the plan. I'm going to put my riflemen out in the first ranks. You riflemen are going to have a contest to see who can be counted as brave men. I want y'all to fire 2 or 3 shots, at least 2, and then run back behind the militia line, then reload. I want you militiamen to hold your fire till they get close, blast them with a volley, reload and blast them again. Then all y'all run behind the hill and reload. I will have my Continentals behind that hill. Tarleton ain't going to know they're there. When the redcoats crest that hill, everybody shoots and charges in at once. Shooting, stabbing, hollering, and a-cussing. That's when we win, boys. I don't reckon any of them will surrender, but if they do, don't kill them." Morgan, the psychologist, also knew that if the plan was for his militiamen to run away, that none of his men would panic. After all, they were just following the plan. "Now, if something goes wrong with the plan, I'll have William Washington and his dragoons hiding in that little swale. If he sees a need to charge in to save somebody, he'll do it. Remember, boys, Tarleton's men are exhausted, hungry, and ready to collapse. For us, there ain't no retreat, and you know what will happen to you if you try to surrender. So, we got him right where we want him. 3 cheers for General Morgan! Hip, hip, huzzah! Hip, hip, huzzah! Hip, hip, huzzah! On the morning of January 17th, 1781, the day the Battle of Cowpens was to take place, Everhart and a small detachment were sent out to scout British movements, but his patrol encountered a larger British force. Go back and report what we've seen to Colonel Washington and to General Morgan. I will hold them off. Everhart put up a short resistance, but was soon surrounded, wounded, and captured. His wound was dressed by a British doctor. Do you think Morgan will fight? If Morgan can keep 200 men together, he will fight, and I hope to God it's another Tarleton defeat. I am Colonel Tarleton, sir, and I am Sergeant Everhart. Look, Major, this Morgan fellow calls himself a general, but he's nothing but a fool. What leads you to say that, sir? I say it because it's true. He has in his front riflemen. His militia is behind that about 200 yards, and my Tory scouts tell me that beyond all that is the broad river. And what does this mean, sir? Don't you see it, Major? It means he cannot escape. His men are trapped. When we advance, they may shoot, they may not, but either way, they will run toward the river, as they always do. When they reach the river, they will beg for their miserable lives. And do you know what will happen next? Yes, sir, I know what will happen next. Good. Deploy the infantry for battle, and order the grasshoppers to begin the ball. British artillery were trained to bounce their cannonballs along the ground. But the ground was wet, and the balls were not bouncing. They just stuck harmlessly in the mud. The grasshoppers are not effective today. Send forth the infantry. The British Army advanced toward the riflemen. I can knock the nose off a squirrel at 200 yards. I imagine I could hit one of them big old red-coat officers from here. The riflemen fired. Some British fell, but they continued to march forward. The riflemen reloaded. All right, boys, get the second shot and let's hightail it to the militia line. What did I tell you, Major? They're running like scared rabbits. Don't shoot till I tell you to. They're out of range. Captain, I think they're in range. I can see a pimple on that man's nose over there. Yes, they're in range. Make ready. Take aim. Fire! The Americans fired all 700 muskets and rifles at once. The smoke before them was so thick they couldn't see through it. The volley was so loud they couldn't hear very well. What do we do? I can't see nothing, and I can't reload and fire again. But what if they're all dead? Why do we need to reload? Just reload. If they're all dead, we'll just shoot in the air. But Morgan said we gotta shoot twice. The militiamen reloaded. Soon, the smoke dissipated, and when they looked out, you know what they saw? They were coming at us like we didn't hit nothing. But they did hit a lot. There was a line of dead and wounded left behind, but the British soldiers came bravely forward, dressing their lines as if nothing had happened. Come on, boys, fire the second shot, then run behind a hill. They fired the second shot and then ran for it. What did I tell you, Major? It's happening exactly as I said it would. Why should I let the infantry have all the glory? I myself shall lead a cavalry charge and we'll chop them up before they can reload. Charge! Oh no, the horsemen are going to kill us all. Oh, this is bad. They're going to kill all of our militiamen. We must intervene. Bugler, sound the charge. and William Washington's 14-year-old African-American bugler sounded the charge, and the white-coated cavalry came charging over the hill, splattering mud all over themselves. They arrived just in the nick of time to intercept Tarleton's cavalry. There was a shock you could feel. Horses were traveling end over end. Men were being shot down in the saddle with pistols, and some were being chopped in two with sabers. A British cornet named Patterson from the 17th Light Dragoons charged at William Washington. Probably would have got him too, but William Washington's bugler made a key shot that saved his life. And then something took place that only happens in the movies, but it happened in this battle. Two high-ranking commanders, Colonel Tarleton and William Washington, fighting each other on horseback with sabers. And they knew who each other was, and both of them were excellent swordsmen. Where is the boasting Colonel Tarleton now? I am Colonel Tarleton, sir. William Washington got the first lucky blow, chopped off two of Tarleton's fingers on his sword hand. But Tarleton got the next lucky swing. He broke William Washington's sword near the hilt. Oh no! Oh yes! But William Washington was good, and just with the handle of his sword, he was able to stop Tarleton from killing him. Well, if I can't get you with this sword, I will get you with this. Oh no! Oh yes! Oh well, that's all right. I have another, and this time I won't miss, Mr. Washington. Tarleton fired his second pistol. The ball grazed his leg, but it hit his horse, and the horse went down, trapping William Washington's leg. Oh, poor Mr. Washington. I'm certain that really hurts. Well, no matter. I will help you. It will only hurt for a moment. Hold still. Tarleton raised his sword to finish off Washington, but right then another American came riding up and was charging him. Oh, I must take care of this, but I promise I'll be right back. Don't go away. And with that, Tarleton rode away to intercept the charging American. Right then, Everhart saw William Washington lying on the ground, trapped under his horse. Colonel Washington, are you hurt, sir? Oh, Sergeant Everhart. I'm not seriously hurt, but I'm stuck. Can you help get me out? Well, of course I'll try, sir. William Washington was a very big man, but Everhart was strong, and he was able to pull Washington out from under his horse. Thank you, Sergeant. May I trouble you for one more thing? My boot. It's trapped under the horse. Will you help me get it? No, sir, Colonel. Tarleton will come back. Please take my horse and escape while there's still time. But if I take your horse, you'll be killed. But your life is worth 100 like mine. Please take my horse while there's still time and escape. Yes, you're right. I am more important than you are. And William Washington mounted Everhart's horse and took off as fast as he could go. In the meantime, Tarleton dispatched the man he was fighting with and came back to finish off Washington. Where is he? Where did he go? Oh, there he is. He's getting away. Now we have a horse race. In the lead, old Dunmore, was William Washington, and not far behind was Tarleton, on the finest horse in America, waving his sword over his head and yelling, "Come back here, Mr. Washington, I'm going to kill you." In that case, I'm not coming back there. Up ahead there was a steep ravine, and Washington wondered, can this horse make that jump? That ditch is wide and it's deep. Can he make it? No matter, I can't go back. William Washington made the jump. It was a wonder that it didn't break Dunmore's back, the weight of William Washington. And they almost wiped out on the other side, but the horse recovered, and Dunmore and William Washington continued on. I won't make such a foolish jump with my fine horse. I'll kill you the next time I see you, you coward. And with that, Tarleton wheeled his horse around and started trotting up toward Everhart. And Everhart said, "Oh no, what do I do? I can't fight. I have no weapons. I can't surrender. He'll just kill me. I can't run. He has that horse." Then Everhart remembered the old arm's reach rule. Nearby, he spotted a dead enemy soldier, and underneath him was the glint of a musket barrel. Aha! If this thing is loaded, I'm going to shoot Tarleton. And if I shoot Tarleton, I will be the greatest hero in the entire revolution. They'll write songs about me. They'll Maybe I'll be the president of the new United Colonies of Everhart. Has a ring to it. All depends on one thing. Is there powder in this pan? He went to check to see if there were powder in the pan. But the lock mechanism broke off and fell into the weeds. This gun's not going to fire even if it is loaded. But too late. Here comes Tarleton. So what does Everhart do? Hold it right there, you! Sir, do you have any idea to whom you are speaking? I am Lieutenant Colonel Bannister Tarleton, commander of His Majesty's forces on this field. Yes, I know who you are, but you don't know me. I'm Sergeant Everhart. And I'm going to tell you something, Tarleton. If you don't get off that horse right now, I'm going to blow your head off. Now, my dear fellow, you don't want to blow my head off. Oh, yes, I do. Get off the horse right now, or I'll do it. Oh, but now, you don't want to shoot me. Yes, I do. Tarleton got off the horse. Hand me those reins. Here you go. Back up. All right, very well. You're not going to shoot me, are you? I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Everhart mounted Tarleton's fine horse and started riding away on it. And when he was safely away, he took that old broken musket and threw it off into the weeds and couldn't help himself. He yelled, "You are a poltroon! Don't you know that I would have shot you had I been able?" And Tarleton said, "Well, of course, he's right. And he would have, of course, he'd have been a hero to his people. Come back here with my horse, you horse thief." "I don't think so. Bye." And as he rode off, Tarleton yelled, "If I ever see you again, I'm going to..." Everhart rode into the American camp and was soon confronted by General Morgan. "Sergeant?" "Yes, General Morgan?" "Where'd you get that horse?" "Oh, I borrowed it from an English officer, sir." "Oh, you borrowed that horse?" "Yes, sir." "Well, you didn't steal that horse now, did you?" "Oh, no, sir, I'm not a horse thief." "Well, if that's the case, could I borrow that horse?" "Of course, General. It ain't for me, it's for the doctor. Surgeon Pendle's gonna need a good horse like that and right there to take care of all the casualties from this battle. He needs to get to him." "What horse shall I take, sir?" Why don't you take the doctor's horse?" "Yes, sir. Where is it?" "It's up behind the doctor's tent." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." Everhart walked up to the doctor's tent and looked behind it, and he saw the worst horse in the world. He had just gone from the best horse in the world to the worst horse in the world. This poor old doctor's horse looked like he had been, should have died of old age 20 years ago. But the old doctor's horse was smart. When Everhart said to him, "Hey, old doctor's horse, I gotta take you into battle," the doctor's horse argued with him and said, and Everhart said, "Yes, I do." He goes, he said, "Yes, I do. I'm taking you. I don't care." So Everhart mounted the old doctor's horse, said, "Come on, yeah, come on. I know you can walk. Come on." Finally, the old horse took a step and another step, but then, about the time Everhart got him up to a gallop and was entering the battle zone, the old doctor's horse hoof hit a hole, like a gopher hole, and it threw Everhart off and knocked him out. And when Everhart woke up, he saw 3 British dragoons pointing their horse pistols right at his head. "What shall we do with him?" "Oh, let's just shoot him now." "No, let's take him to Tarleton. Perhaps he knows something." And Everhart said, "Oh, just shoot me now." "No, you're going with us. Get up, you scoundrel." And they took Everhart to Tarleton's camp. Fortunately, Tarleton wasn't there, but he soon arrived. And Everhart spotted Tarleton and looked aside, but then Tarleton spotted Everhart and said, "You!" And Everhart said, "Me?" He said, "Yes, you. Where is my horse?" I don't rightly know." "Oh, you don't rightly know. The liar and the horse thief." "My name's Sergeant Everhart." "I don't care what your name is." "Lieutenant?" Sir, shoot this man. Sir, draw your pistol, put it to his head, pull the trigger, and blow his brains out, Lieutenant, and do it now. Oh, very good, sir. Quickly, Lieutenant, I have a battle to win. Very good, sir. The British lieutenant drew his pistol, put it to Everhart's head, and said, very sorry about this, you know. I don't really want to do it. Well, then don't do it. I said, well, I have to do it. He's watching me. He's given me a command. He'll shoot me if I don't shoot you. Yes, I understand the problem. And the British lieutenant put the pistol to his head and pulled the trigger. But the shot didn't kill him. Everhart thought he was dead. Everyone thought he was. The pistol went off and Everhart fell into the weeds, but it didn't kill him. Maybe the powder was partially wet or the ball had fallen out of the lieutenant's pistol. I don't know, but it didn't kill him. But he thought he was dead. Everyone did. Thank you, Lieutenant. Now back to the battle. The British were approaching the crest of the hill, confident in their victory, and all of a sudden, the Continentals, along with the militia and rifles, poured in a devastating volley. The Redcoats, who were already exhausted before the battle even began, had not the energy or strength to fight. They did something they had never done before. All over the field, they threw down their muskets and begged for quarter. Some Americans said, "Give them Tarleton's quarter." But the American officers said, "No, we will spare their lives." The soldiers said, "Why? They would have killed us." But the orders from General Morgan is to spare their lives. If we do what they do, what does it matter which side wins? Major MacArthur begged Colonel Howard to spare his life, which was done. Some of the last British to surrender were the cannon crews. All of them were dead except for the man who lit the cannon. The Americans surrounded him, but he attempted to fight on, trying to aim his loaded cannon at them. They would just move out of the way and he would try to re-aim the cannon. One American said, "Let's just finish him off." But an American officer said, "No, let him live. It would be a shame to kill such a brave man." And they took him a prisoner. When the Americans overran Tarleton's camp, they saw Everhart sitting up with his hand on his forehead. "What happened to you?" "You see that British lieutenant standing there? That first man in the line of prisoners?" "Yeah, we see him." The lieutenant gulped. "Tarleton ordered him to shoot me in the head with his pistol, and he did it." "He did?" They all looked at the British lieutenant, who gulped again. "Yeah, and it really hurts, but please don't harm him. He had no choice, and besides, he reminds me of someone." "Are you going to shoot us as well?" "No, just him." At the Battle of Cowpens, the Americans lost somewhere between 12 and 25 men killed, and perhaps 60 wounded. But Tarleton's army was wiped out. He lost 110 killed and nearly 900 were taken prisoner. Only about 50 of his men escaped, and one of the 50 who escaped was Tarleton himself. He made his way to Cornwallis to report what had happened, but Cornwallis didn't seem to be too upset about it. He said, "So you have lost your army. Well, we'll just have to get you another one." Tarleton did command a new force, and with it, he nearly captured Thomas Jefferson at his home in Monticello. Near the end of the war, Tarleton was among the British prisoners captured at Yorktown. Tarleton made the dangerous journey across the Chesapeake so that he could surrender to the French instead of surrendering to the Americans. Tarleton was given a hero's welcome when he returned to England. He was promoted to be a general and was also elected to a seat in Parliament as a representative of the Liverpool area. Still not recovered from his wounds, Everhart did not participate as a soldier in the Battle of Yorktown, but he was there to witness the surrender of Cornwallis's army. After Yorktown, many people believed the war was over, but it was not. Very bitter fighting continued in the southern colonies for a couple more years. Tories and Patriots massacred each other, burned down each other's homes. It wasn't until the Treaty of Paris was signed and many Tories left the American colonies that the fighting finally stopped. After the war, Everhart became a preacher, apparently for two different denominations, the United Brethren Church and the Methodist Church. He was considered special because he could speak and preach in both English and German. At Frederick, Maryland in 1824, Everhart led the parade through town and was given the second most important seat at the banquet honoring the Marquis de Lafayette during the Marquis's triumphant tour of America. During the Revolutionary War, Everhart was wounded numerous times, was captured numerous times, and escaped numerous times. He also saved the lives of people at risk of his own. He was a true hero. It was said that the happiest time Everhart had in his entire life was when he was an old man, sitting in his house by his fireplace, with his grandchildren and great-grandchildren seated before him, and he would tell them about the time he bluffed Tarleton out of his horse in the middle of the Battle of Cowpens. Lawrence Everhart was my sixth great-grandfather.